there's been a little bit of a thing running around where people are saying like, oh, you have to trade Mangiapane if you want both Jarry and Walman activated. And a peek behind the curtain, you sent me the work on this, so I know it's not true, but we have the screenshots of like what their roster could look like. Like, walk us through how the Oilers can be compliant with all three of Walman, Jarry, and Mangiapane on the roster.
Yeah, so the key again is that the annual cap hit of the roster has to be under 95.5. So if you bring up a roster that has Ingram on it, for example, then you can only have 21 players. Here's the one with Ingram. So if you look, that top number roster annual cap hit is 94.8. So it's under 95.5. That's so to do this, we've waived and sent down Lazar. We've sent down Stillman. We waived and sent down Ingram. Am I missing
Pickard.
Someone else?
And Howard as well. Howard's not on this roster.
And we sent Howard down, exactly.
Yep.
And so on this one, Pickard, not Ingram. Yeah, we sent down Pickard. So on this one, there's only one extra skater. That's Regula, right? So that means any forward injury, they're going 11-7. This is probably not a sustainable way, considering we know that injuries happen. But again, they could be cap compliant if they did this. And this was sending Pickard down. The other option is, because of it comes right down to it, the difference between Pickard at 1 million and Ingram at 1.15, that's actually just moves you into the threshold where you could fit a whole other guy. So on this roster, you see we're like just under 40 grand, under 95.5, and this has Pickard on it instead of Ingram, and that difference allows you to have an extra player. So in this one, we kept Lazar up, and so again, this would be Stillman down, Howard down, and Ingram down. So again, this is cap compliant. No room to do anything else, and no room if someone else gets injured. But you're cap compliant and activating those guys, and you still have Mangiapane on the roster.
This is just an observation, and I don't know how you'll take it, but like, that's what pisses me off so much about the fact they gave up a pick in the Jarry deal and didn't get any retention. Because like, I think back to, remember when we laughed when Ekholm was traded here and they retained like 250 grand, and we were like, haha, what a funny amount of money to get retained. But like, how many times over the course of Ekholm's tenure with the Oilers have we probably been in need of that extra 250 grand? Not that you couldn't have found it in other ways, but like, God, if they would have just gotten Pittsburgh to keep $1 million of Jarry's contract, because I still stand by the fact that I think Pittsburgh kind of wanted to get rid of that money at some point anyways, you would have been in such a better spot. And you can do that with a whole bunch of different contracts, but like, that one's the most recent, so that one's pissing me off.
My understanding is that Pittsburgh, it wasn't the money, they just didn't want to have the retention spot tied up for the remaining years of Jarry's contract. So if that's the case, that they did have some other options. Like, we're now in a spot where Mangiapane is willing to waive and they're willing to trade him. Well, if that happened at the time of the Jarry trade, right? Like, if you traded Mangiapane, you could have kept one of Kulak or Skinner, for example. You wouldn't have had to trade both to make the money work. Or the other option, which we've heard, is like there should be a market for especially Kulak, maybe Skinner. I don't think that Pittsburgh necessarily valued those guys in the deal that much. So could they have done better by trading one of those guys elsewhere, got an asset, right, and then made the deal with Pittsburgh at the same time? So, I mean, if we're going to play, Monday morning quarterback, that's where I think you can nitpick is that. Or you could say, if Pittsburgh wasn't willing to retain, why did you have to do the trade then? Because at the time, Skinner had actually put a few good games together. Jarry had come back from injury, but there was concern, can he stay healthy? And so if they hadn't made the trade then, what do things look like now in January, right? Let's say Jarry's hurt. Let's say Skinner had fallen off. Maybe you could have done the trade at the time, but you would have had more leverage because now Jarry was a little bit more of a diminished asset. So that'd be the other thing, is like, why did you have to do the trade at the time you did it?
So as we looked at those two rosters, it seems pretty inevitable that the Oilers have to move out someone like Andrew Mangiapane. And then maybe, like, once they get to the deadline, that's probably when they can just have a shorter roster because there's so few games after, right? Do you think that's kind of the idea you would suspect they go with?
My guess is they try to move Mangiapane as quickly as possible. And then when these guys are healthy, they can actually have a roster that's under the cap and accruing some space. And to me, like, the big time would be the Olympics. It's almost 3 weeks where if you're under the cap, you're going to accrue like 3 weeks worth of space. You don't have to worry about calling up guys if people are injured. So if I was doing this on my spreadsheets, which isn't the real world, but if I could like design it how I want to do it, I would get Mangiapane out right away. And, hopefully, you can't really trust their injury timelines this year, but let's say they're actually Walman and Jarry are good in 2 weeks, right? Now you can actually get to the Olympic break, hopefully healthy, and accrue some space now without Mangiapane on the roster. And then you have injuries or you want to do acquisitions, you see where you get to after the Olympic break. But that would be a lot better than waiting until a week before the trade deadline to trade Mangiapane, for example.
I think it's a great point. If you can accrue for a little bit, and then if after the deadline, you're good with running a more bare bones roster, that's 12 forwards, 72 goalies. Like, you're at the point there where maybe, and I'm just loosely throwing a number out here, but like maybe you could fit in a guy at the deadline who's got a $5 million plus cap hit, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we said they're basically, let's say no cap space activating everyone. And then they trade Mangiapane, that's 3.6, right? So you can at least replace that. If you do it, a month before, that grows into the 4s, right? And maybe also you replace another end of roster guy. So you move Mangiapane and you have good health, you could be looking at adding 4 or 5 million at the deadline.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you enjoyed today's episode of Oilers Nation Every Day, make sure you hit the subscribe button here on our YouTube to not miss any of our content. We got you covered from interviews, insight, analysis, everything you need to stay up to date on everything around the team. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video.